Hodge to win a one-on-one against Schofield. Puopolo got a high tackle. Back to Hodge. That's a goal, I think. It is. Hodge has done it from nowhere. He could have done it. The first team in the 18-team competition to go back to back to back. They're three-peaters.
Collingwood by a point. Lockyer brings it in. Ryder sandwich between two pies. Back of the Packers, Winderlich. Quick handball to Hocking. Back to Lovett Murray. He goes short. It's a mark to Zaharakis. Zaharakis has kicked a goal. The Bombers are in front of the G.
You are now listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Molten Fantasy Sport Podcast. I am your host, Rob Kennedy, the Supercoach Hawk, sitting here with my friend, Mickie Dell, the Big Horse. How are you, mate?
Robbie, good mate. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Big Horse, as it is on Twitter, with the Supercoach Hawk. Robbie, there's been a week of dual position statuses, changes, some big break-evens, some nice cash cows there that could potentially turn into premiums. We've got a bit to discuss today.
I think we do. I think there's a big conversation piece as well between teasers versus traps is something that I've been working on. I think you would get very excited with the possible cash grabbers. Do we upgrade now? Do we upgrade later? Do we use those boosts? So I think we've got a lot to talk about in today's live with everyone jumping on board. Bit of an earlier time slot today as well. We're taking over the place of Thursday night football. Sadly, not with us today. Possibly a few people driving home from work as well. So travel safely and hopefully they get on soon and drop some questions in. Make sure you click subscribe if you haven't already. But between now and some questions coming in, mate, we're going to start talking about what we're doing with our teams this week thus far before seeing the massive team drops. And then we can start to talk about some DPPs. We can talk about some break-evens and also talk a little bit about what the future sort of holds for us as a podcast. There's some exciting breaking news for everybody as we get through today's live. So, mate, let's start off with, I did have one. So on my Twitter handle, I did put it out today that you and I were jumping in the studio. One from Thunder Turtle, good mate of ours. Sard out 1 or 2 weeks with a hammy. Hold or move is part one of the question. But part two is, especially for those who's already copping green for 1 week. Where does that sit with you, mate?
So for me, I've got both. And I can't afford to carry both and still post a decent score. So my thought process behind this is who is more likely to be a big scorer towards the back end of the year. And from what we've seen so far, that's going to be Sard with the way that he runs and carries the ball out of defence, the way that Carlton look to get the ball in his hands. Yes, Tom Green gets a lot of the ball, but it's a lot of inside handball-y type stuff. Last week, what do you have? 31 touches and 25 of them were handballs, or 23 of them were handballs. So, yeah, doing the calculations there, and I think Sard has a bigger upside. So this week, one of my trades is Green, but I am going to be holding Sard. Hopefully, it's only a week, given that I believe it's like 16 days between the Adelaide game, he misses one game, and until the next week. So that's almost 2.5 weeks. I'm hoping that's it.
So I'm going to disagree with you. I'm a big fan of Tom Green. He gives me. I don't have him. I wish I had him. I wish I had him from the start. He gives me comfort in what he's delivering. And if you're watching, and I know you do watch a lot of the games, you've got massive insights to what goes on with footy. I love his role. They look to either handball back to him. If the tap hasn't gone to him, he gets the handball back. He then maybe handballs off again. But I don't know. There's something about Tom Green that right now at this current moment, he gives me comfort in what he scores. Now, maybe if you've got some trades later on and you're starting to get into the end of the season or going into your finals for your league, he might be the one that you go, I got to bite the bullet now and take this average up from 105 to a 115 or something like that. But for now, he sits comfortably with me. But I understand if you've had to make a call, you've made the call and you back yourself. But I like where Tom Green's sitting at the moment. But Sard probably does have the bigger upside. But Tom Green gives me less of a heart attack, is my view on that one. Luke Fowles, cheers for the shout out. Edwards, good option to pick up or go for a cheaper option? Big horse?
He's talking about Luke Edwards from West Coast Eagles.
correct. That's what I'm taking it as. Yep.
I think it's a fairly safe option. So it's one of the higher end West Coast Eagles, I guess, rookie type prices at 190K, I believe it is.
Yep, 193.
Yep, I think he's going to play. And I think he's going to play a lot given their injury crisis that they have. So if you've got the money to burn on him and you feel comfortable in playing him, go for it. You know, he might make you 100, 150K that you could turn into a premium later down the track. But I'll put this to you. Do you think that Luke Edwards is going to score better than either Matty Roberts from Sydney with all of their injuries they have at the moment, or than Dylan Williams from Port Adelaide, who looks fairly settled in the Port Adelaide backline at the moment with Darcy Byrne-Jones going forward?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I like Luke Edwards. I think he looks all right. I always thought he was good when he played before as well. But I'd be taking Matty Roberts every day of the week over Luke Edwards at the moment. Maybe Luke Edwards has that job security for the moment with all the injuries that are happening at West Coast, but they could chop and change very quickly. Luke Shuey's already saying that he's back this week and those types of things. So I'm unsure on what that looks like. For me, it's Matty Roberts for that 129, 800. We look at that nice little rule of thumb of who's going to get me the 100K the quickest. And I think Matty Roberts gets that 100K a lot quicker than Luke Edwards does now, sitting on that 193, 800. Williams, I'm not sold on. So we've talked a lot about the teasers versus the ones to take this week. But I'm not sold on Williams. I'm more of a fan of a Seamus Mitchell, someone like that. But then that also means that I might hold out one more week on them until that guaranteed cash money comes. So yeah, Luke, hopefully that answers your question. You could do a lot worse than Luke Edwards, but I reckon Matty Roberts is the way to go. So what are you doing with your team? You've given us a little bit of a teaser there with your trades and things like that. What are you doing this week, Delly?
Yeah, so I'm a bit far behind, so I've got to try and make up ground somehow. So I'm going to put my agates on the line and back myself in. I'm going to bring Hawkins in, and I'm bringing Zeeble in.
He's backing himself. I love it.
Yeah.
Everyone who listened along last week.
There's something like Geelong's out of their last 16 games, 11 are in Geelong, where he averages over 100 points a game. I think he's just played himself into a bit of form now. Like we saw that he struggled early with a foot injury, had a limited preseason. The first 4 games were pretty ordinary by anyone's means. But the last 2 weeks, they've played against an ordinary team. He's managed to work his way into a little bit of form. He takes the forward rucks, so we can see that he doesn't have to take marks or kick goals to get scores because, you know, he grabs the ball out of the ruck and he kicks goals or he sets up his teammates for goals. So I'm hoping that he can play not just as a power forward, but as that forward ruckman creating goals for the small forwards. And then on the other side of that, I'm bringing in Zeeble, and that's leaving me just short 400K to hopefully do a double upgrade into 2 primos next week.
Is Zeeble going to be sitting in your forward line, or is he sitting in your back line?
Zeeble's sitting in my back line.
Very nice. Good.
Yeah.
I like it. So just the 2 moves. Any no rookie movements. So Matt Roberts hasn't appealed to you just yet?
Not just yet, no. I want to see what his role's like with Dane Rampy in the side. I think he plays and I think he scores. I want to see how well it is with one of the McCartans back, who I believe is back this week, with Dane Rampy, to see whether they're going to play him as a wingman, to see whether they're going to play him as a half back, or whether they're going to play him across half forward. So I want to get pretty comfortable with what he's doing on field before I try and make a bit of coin out of him.
Beautiful. NJB's giving a shout out. Big Nath, how are you, my friend? Hey, fellas, thoughts on Took this week? Big horse?
He's got a really good line of games coming up, doesn't he? He's got, Richmond, Brisbane, North, Melbourne, and there's West Coast, I think, is the other one. So 5 games where he averages almost 130 collectively against these teams, and other midfields score really well against them. So when we're talking about Took, if you've got the money to bring him in, I believe that he's going to almost Dawson-esque score the next month. So this is my play for next week. I want to bring Took in next week, so hopefully he doesn't go too big this week.
Yeah.
But if you can bring him in, yeah, I don't think you'll be disappointed. And a fairly solid VC option.
Yeah, no, really good shout. I think, for me, it's setting up things for next week as well. If I can't bring in Oliver or Took without really forcing it and going against some players who still have low break evens, I'm not going to force it just yet. My time will come and the team will sort of mold itself the way that I want it to. I've got some strict rules that I'm going to stick to that I'm going to release in a little bit later on in this live. And one of them is definitely not forcing players and upgrading too early, in my opinion. Really great question coming through here, and it's one that's tickled my fancy, actually. It's got me thinking. Cheers, Michael. Would you consider Rosie as a sneaky VC option playing at the Adelaide Oval against West Coast? Now, let's be clear as well. We talked about this on our last pod. For most people playing at home, that has the Madden loophole. That said, Gold Coast are playing a little bit later in this week, or if you hold Caminiti, they're playing a little bit later this week as well. But if you are just working off the Madden loophole, they are the third game this week. So it only leaves you Fremantle versus Western Bulldogs and Port Adelaide against West Coast. And for someone like me who doesn't have Bontempelli, Rosie against West Coast is a nice little sneaky difference, but it's hard for me to not go past English as my VC with the numbers that he's putting out, albeit he's going up against a primo ruckman in Sean Darcy, and they're playing here in WA. So, Big Horse, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like Rosie, but I'm not sure as a VC option. When you're talking about West Coast, is it going to be Butters that goes big again, or there's too many other factors like Jason Horne-Francis could have a big week this week against a really poor West Coast midfield. So we're looking as a collective here with the way Port Adelaide plays. I would really like Rosie to go large because he's in my team, but as a VC option, I'm not sure for this week. If you've said English, I'm going to throw out Bontempelli as a VC option on Friday night.
I love the Bontempelli call. I don't have him. Yeah.
Against a small Freo midfield. So you've got Sarong, you've got Brayshaw, you've got Walters. Like, you do have good players in there, but they're all 5 foot bugger all when we're talking about height. Bontempelli 6'3", 6'4". He pushes forward. He kicks goals. He'll possess a bit of a matchup problem. I think Hayden Young might go to him when he pushes forward, which will limit Hayden Young's run and create. But I can't see anyone else really going to him because they want to keep Brendan Copps as that intercept marker, and then they want to keep Luke Ryan free to a degree, so then they can use his rebound 50 kicking. So, yeah, I reckon Bontempelli or English, in your case, are really good options for VCs, especially early on.
We had a really good conversation on Twitter today, which was about sort of, Longmuir has come in and said that they're going to put some effort into and time into Bontempelli. But that didn't put any fear in me if I was a Bontempelli owner for the exact same reason you've said. The only person that they've really used to put a bit of time into play has sometimes been James Aish. And he's too small. He's not big-bodied enough to stop Bontempelli. So I think Bontempelli could actually go rampant. And I'm still umming and ahhing my tip for Friday night. Freo have let me down. The Doggies let me down against Port last week, but I still think the Doggies look better than Freo, albeit that we're here over in the West. So, yeah, great question. Next one, Jacob Z. Is it worth upgrading to a primo and bringing in two rookies like Roberts and Wagner, or going for two players like Setterfield and Hopper instead? Just trying to get my head around that one. Is it worth upgrading to a primo and bringing two rookies? First and foremost, I'm not sold on Wagner at all. I wouldn't be going anywhere near Wagner. I like Roberts, happy with Roberts. I guess I'd love to know going for two players like Setterfield and Hopper. I'm all about right now being downgrades to cash generators and upgrades to primos or keepers. In my mind, Setterfield's not a primo or a full keeper. Hopper, I think, is starting to look a bit more like a keeper for now, but he wouldn't be that full primo maybe by the end of the year. I don't know if I've read that quite right. What's your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I think you may have missed the boat when you're talking about Setterfield and Hopper, because the reason why you'd be bringing them in is for some cash generation at their low starting price. But I reckon both of them, not so much Hopper, he might have another 30 to 40K to make But Setterfield especially, I can't see him scoring too many 120, 130 games. And this is the same with Hopper. Like, he had a blinder last week, but I can't see him scoring, your 110s, 120s on a consistent basis. So unless you think that they're going to be keepers and they're in for the rest of the year, I wouldn't be bringing them in. So if you're tossing up whether to bring in Setterfield and Hopper or whether to bring in 2 rookies, I'd be bringing in the 2 rookies. So
100%.
I'd like to go the other way on you. When you're talking about Wagner, I thought his disposal last week was ordinary, but he loves kicking, and he actually found the ball pretty well. So he's one that I'm keeping an eye on this week, and if he cleans up his disposal, still gets his 15 touches rebounding out of 50, gets his 60 or 70 points, he may be someone that I bring in next week as a rookie.
I still come back to Seamus Mitchell, Ned Long. They look better for me. Jacob Hopper. So this is the big difference that people need to look at. Hopper's sitting with a BE of 46. Setterfield's BE has already gone up to 80. So if everybody's looking at their sort of Supercoach Plus, which is showing only a bit of a slight difference in their cash generator this week, they've also only put Hopper down as suggested to maybe get 83, where they reckon Setterfield's going to get 104. So big disparities there. Just continue to look at the BE. I think if you're going to decide between the two of them, I think Hopper's got an opportunity, but I agree. I think you either really go now after the primos or downgrade and get the cash and make some smart moves moving forward.
Yeah.
The good man, the great man himself,
Hey.
the great man himself. We know he's doing well. Mr. Herbie, Sheasel, LDU's high for the Brownlow. Mate, I'd love to know what that's paying. Surely it's worth $1.
Millions.
A tie from the same team for the Brownlow. I mean, I don't know if that's even possible. I mean, you got the Petrarcas and the Oliver types that have just basically cost each other to get a Brownlow. I don't know if you'll ever get 2 right at the top to tie. But let's be serious about this for a second though. Sheasel looks fantastic. LDU has been looking great. I really want to see him turn on a big game against a big side. So yeah. I'd love to see it. He's now talked about in the top echelon of midfielders, no doubt, well deserved. So they're going to put time and effort into him. So I want to see how he goes. And we talked about it in the last pod, which was Simpkin when he comes back is the one to maybe put on your watch list because he's going to get his hands on his footy with all the time going into LDU. But Mr. Herbie, it's good to hear from you. I hope you are well. So let's talk about my team. My team's very simple this week and probably a little bit boring, and I apologize. But this week, I'm possibly looking at just doing the one trade. So for me, I'm sitting on quite a few trades already used. I've only got a couple of boosts left to go. And like I said, I've got my eye on some more players to make sure that they definitely get to that 2 games played, guaranteed cash, and I like their role. That they're going to do it for a while. So for me, Mackenzie is the out and the Roberts is in. So I'm with the community on this one, especially if I see Roberts named in the starting lineup. If he, for some reason, goes back to being the sub, then I'm going to have to rethink it. I do have Caminiti in my team, but I'm still going to hold him at the moment because I'm just not quite sold on Williams just yet. And I do prefer the look of a Seamus Mitchell, but I want to see him get his numbers in. And I think as we've seen, if we're not sold and we're not sure, anything can happen in a week of footy. Someone else might get injured. Somebody else might do something different that forces me to make some trades, and that kind of burns the plan. So it looks like it could be the 1 week trade for me now. And that's not to say then that Caminiti still isn't the one that goes out next week, or Setterfield's break even goes way too high, and I feel really comfortable making the upgrade call right there and then. So that's me for the moment. What's your thoughts on my moves, mate? Is that too boring or?
No, I think it's structured and it makes sense. Yeah, we're not going gung ho. Yeah,
I went gung ho a bit too hard at the start, mate. I got to bring the structures back. So yeah, Jeremy Phelan.
How good's this?
I haven't read it yet.
Jezza he's in the United States, listening to our podcast. He gets his information, all his news on AFL from this podcast, and he wants to know, are we bringing in Seaman Mitchell? Yes. Or Roberts? Love your work, Jezza. Such a great bloke. So
we've been inundated, and it's been a really great week for the crew at Molten, and we'll talk more about the exciting news coming up. And I think we have sort of answered this, but we'll answer it again. We've talked a lot about, our sponsors, and we love them, the Standard Squeeze and Stat Fitness, and the things that they've actually got out of people going and using the code, going in and signing up for memberships, finding out where our viewership is from, the subscribers. It really blows my mind. And we've had a really great moment with the crew to just have a chat about it. It's been so much fun. So to see messages like this again, just continue to be like, this is awesome. Like, I love it so much. We thank you all so much for the support you're giving us. And we'll take feedback both ways. Slap us across the face with, you got this one wrong. I don't want to hear it just from our Molten crew chat. You can more than welcome come on and tell us where we got it wrong. But we love when you come on and tell us we got it right too. So, mate, the answer to the question here for me is go with Roberts and watch Mr. Seamus for one more week, is my opinion. Unless for some reason you really need to bring someone on your field, I don't think there's a reason that you need to take the risk. I think the other S. Mitchell, his coach, is going to be moving a lot of magnets a lot of times, and you never know when he just gives one of them the sub vest as they're just sort of resting and moving things around like he did with Cam McKenzie last week.
Yeah. I like that he's stayed up in the middle of the night to watch us, Robbie. Knowing Jez Phelan, he's a good-looking rooster. He doesn't need no beauty sleep. So good stuff for staying up, mate. Wait for Seaman Mitchell next week, mate. If he's playing backline and playing that running defender again, he'll be worth bringing in. I think with, as we brought up before, with Sydney's injuries, the way they have it at the moment, and with Rampy coming back and one of the McCartans coming back, I think there's still a role there for Matty Roberts. What it is, I don't know, but he will score, and he's break-evens in the negative, so you will make coin.
A fantastic producer. Well, I give him that title. He also is the host of the NRL podcast that we do. Structured is code for boring. Thanks, Nath. I'm okay with boring this week. I've learnt my lesson, maybe a little bit too much of going too outside the box. So I'm maybe going to keep it in. That said, it's only Thursday. Teams haven't dropped. There's a very good chance I use a boost and watch me do some 3 massive upgrades, and we'll see how we go. But yeah, I try not to be too boring, but sometimes you got to play the smart move here. The Duke is in the house.
He's a good lad.
What do you think of? Oh, here we go. This is right up your alley, mate. I'll ask the question and I'll just sit back in my seat here. What do you think of Parrish as a top 12? Davey to Butters / DeGoey, or Hollins to Parrish / Sinclair, mate? This one is right up your alley. I'm going to step out for a bit.
Yeah, okay. Sinclair hasn't really showed much yet. Like, I was looking at him, and he's got 2 scores over 100 this year, and one was barely over 100. And if you're paying that price for a premium defender, why wouldn't you just go Nick Blakey? So right now, I like that you want to bring Parrish in. You can mark it here right now, clip it, whatever you want. He will go bonkers on Anzac Day, Mr. Parrish. He has the ability to win his ball inside. There's no merit. They're going to look to get the ball in his hands. If he doesn't have 35-plus touches, I'll eat the Standard Squeeze hat. He will have a big day. And Essendon right now, they're primed. Like, they're not in the upper echelon of teams at the moment, but there's a bit of confidence building around the hangar down at Tullamarine. And I'll tell you what, if they're not Collingwood off this week, I know they beat Melbourne last week with no Gawn, no Lever. There's a few names that missed, but Collingwood, no Ruckman this week, and now McStay's gone down as well, so he's out. They've got no Taylor Adams. To see what Draper and to see what Phillips did against a quality Ruckman in Grundy, what are they going to do against a no Ruckman side, and can they potentially tear the game apart again? So I see the next comments from the Duke is whether to captain Parrish or fade Dacos as captain. Let's put our agates on the line here. I'm choosing Parrish. I think he's got that X factor to win the game for Essendon. Bang it on him. But hopefully someone scores you better earlier.
Mate, I've got it. Like, this is the big one for me. Like, unless you think someone's going to score 150, sometimes if you're owning Parrish, just take his score. He's already enough of a point of difference that you go, awesome. If he comes out and scores 140, you take his score and you go, great, no one else really has him. If you go a bit more smarter and you go like a Dacos or somebody like that who more people own and he scores 129, it's not the game changer between you being, number 1 or number 3 in the week. So for me, why take the risk? Just be excited that if you own Parrish, take his score. Now, I'm going to go as big as saying, no, I don't know why everyone's great. It was great to see Butters jump inside and play the inside mid-roll. It was also pissing down with rain. So maybe they looked at the matchup and threw him in there. He hasn't been in there. He hasn't been doing that. You obviously see a different role for what he's trying to do. I don't like people jumping on Butters way too quickly. I'd have way more confidence in going a Degoe. But I will agree with Parrish and Sinclair. They're both not showing me enough, albeit he'll have a big game this week. As you said, Zach Merritt is out though. So that makes a big difference to me. So I'd be very careful with a lot of that. Looks very panic to me. Other than maybe a Davey to Degoe, that's the only one I'd do right now out of that move.
Parrish scored 133 last Anzac Day and had 44.
Well, I think he'll have a massive game with no Merritt. He's awesome. I'd love to see the numbers of him without like a Merritt or Shield, so he goes in and he's going to be full-time mid.
I think just while you're on that, yes, Essendon will lose a bit of class around the ball with Merritt, but I think Hobbs is going to come in, and I think Hobbs is going to do a pretty serviceable role.
Does Setterfield get off the chain a little bit more then, or is he doing a role?
I think Setterfield's going to go to Pendlebury.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I think going to a Pendlebury though allows you to go and get more footy compared to when he was doing a bit of a job on Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pendlebury's getting the handball at the back, which allows you to go and be a little bit more attacking and then come and cut in on him when you need. Where Clayton Oliver is the one moving to try and get the fall of the tap. So, but look, I mean, for me, with the Dacos call and things like that, surely you're looking at like a Grundy versus Richmond to be a possible captain, or even a Clayton Oliver versus Richmond to be your captain. Took's playing against North Melbourne. He's probably a very good chance to put up a big score for your captains. I think there's smarter and better captain choices. And as I said, and even Dacos. I think Dacos is still a great call against Essendon to go and have a big game. So, look, to finish off this question, though, you go.
Lockie Neal against GWS too, if you've got him. Great VC option earlier in the round.
I reckon that's a massive VC option. Absolutely. I think it's a great call. I think there's options here to play with, no doubt. Prefer Matthews or Williams. For me, it's Matthews. For the big horse, I think it's Matthews, but he actually liked the look of both, didn't you, mate?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. Beautiful. Keep the questions coming in, guys. We'll look to push this one as we go along.
Yep. Just got one from the Apple Store.
Go.
Or Apple Music, sorry. Someone's a bloke by the name of Jesse's listening to us in the car. Thanks for listening in, Jesse. He has bought in Took Miller this week and Alir as a bit of a left field option.
Okay.
I like the Took Miller option. Alir, that would be in the 1%, I reckon. I don't reckon he'd have a high ownership.
Give me a second. I think there's a reason why he might not have an high ownership, but
I think with his intercept marking ability, that would be great, but I don't believe that he's ever averaged more than 90.
Alir is 451k. He's got a break even of 45. He's got a high score of 111, a low score of 44, a 3-round average of 104. He's gone. This one is whoever sent this in, not a bad shout to bring to some people's attention though. He's gone 110 against Brisbane. He dropped against Collingwood, but that's because they also got spanked, I think, if I'm right in saying. 44. Then he's gone 96 against Adelaide, 111 versus Sydney, and 105 versus the Western Bulldogs. He's basically nearly got 100 in 4 of his 5 rounds.
Smart.
Yeah. And he's still sitting at he's increased in value to 45k to 451. He's got West Coast, St Kilda, Essendon, and North Melbourne in the next 4.
Wow.
Look, I'm not putting him in, but he's excited me by bringing it to my attention.
Yeah. I like the size of the grapefruits on you, mate. That's great.
that doesn't get the peanuts emoji. That gets the watermelons for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's big nuts. So, no, good. If that pays off, fantastic. Hopefully you score well this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Alir's doing a role. He loves that intercept, so we know he's going to get the points. He does play that lockdown position at the same time, though. But yeah, Alir's had a big year. I haven't noticed that. That's one that's really crept up on me. I'm surprised he hasn't gone up in more value with some of the scores like that. I guess the 44 brings it right down, and then go from there. But yeah, look, are you able to have a look at my team and help with my trades?
I'm just looking for it now.
Cool. So I'll let you have a look at that one. Maybe what I'll do, mate, is I think it might be time to announce a bit of an announcement of what we're doing with our podcast and with our team. So we sat down this week, had a chat, all the Molten boys. So for everyone who doesn't know, we do AFL, we do AFL, NRL, NBA. We'll be doing BBL when cricket comes around as well. Things have actually been starting to take off a little bit more than we thought they would. So we obviously did have a look at our name. It is the name of another company. So we've decided that at some point soon we'll be changing our name to Insight Fantasy Sport. So bringing you all your fantastic insights and information and continuing on everything we do. So Insight Fantasy Sport is what we will be changing to sometime soon. So look out for that. You shouldn't need to resubscribe or anything like that. It'll just be a little bit of a changeover. So Insight. Now you can tear that apart if you like, but we like it and we're going to stick with it. And we're always going to be the Molten boys. There's always the Molten chat that we're going to have, but we thought for our branding and for purposes as we move through, we're very excited to announce that we'll be changing to Insight Fantasy Sport. You excited by that, mate? I am.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. Yeah, good group of lads. We've started off with a bit of a bang our first 3 months, and to get that name rebranding, and with the followers that we've had, Nath brought up a nice little statistic the other day with the impressions on social media that our brand has gone just over 500,000 in the first 3 months. So it's it's just blown us away with the amount of people that are showing us some love, people who are subbing, people who are watching our podcast, jumping on, looking at our stuff on Twitter. What else is there? Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So yeah, keep the love coming, lads. We love it.
So I've got a couple more statements coming through, a little bit left field, which is really good. So are you lads happy with your teams and how they've performed thus far? For myself, round one was an absolute shocker for me. There were a couple of players who didn't come through for me. Bailey Dale and Angus Brayshaw definitely were the ones, and Ben Cunnington at the start. So they were three big ones that did not come through for me, which is quite on the back foot to start off. I am really happy, though, with where my team is recovering and actually where we sit in the ranks based on where we started after round one. Some big tips and some big picks for me were like Tom Liberatore with the numbers that he's putting out. Having him from the start was a great POD. Paddy Cripps was a good POD for me. And then taking Setterfield to begin with was very handy at the start. But look, we're starting to build. Kelly getting injured round one really hurt me as well, getting that concussion. So took a massive whack round one, but really happy with where we're building and where the team's going to get to. Horse?
We need the Duke to join and subscribe to our league so I can have a look at his team. I can't seem to find it. So we can't evaluate your team if you're not in the league, the Duke.
We'll get him to do that. Do that. So a couple of fun ones coming through. There's a couple of insiders that we'll get through, lads. When's Morel coming on? He's itching. Now, Morel, in the Molten chat with us. We have a very strong rule, top 1%. Top 1%. So Trent came on and he was top 1%. And he came on the show. And Jake Skidmore came on just because he's a legend of a bloke. And, Justin Herbie was with us at the start as a co-host, and no doubt will come back and make appearances later on again for sure.
I don't mind the zingers that he throws in the chat from time to time. So we'll see how Mr. Morel goes this week.
He throws them my way.
he throws them everywhere, doesn't he? But I tell you what, it's good for a laugh.
It is.
Matty, come on, get yourself with the 1%. I'll sit down with you, mate. We'll sort something out for you.
I have no doubt, mark my words, Morel will probably get on for a shout and a special call out at some point, and we'll get him to make 3 strong statements, and then we'll see how they go. Let's get him on. Let's do it. Pierre, thoughts on the Bombers' start to the season and Geelong's rough start as well?
PP, Lovely, lovely bloke Pierre is. G'day, mate. Bombers start of the season better than what any Essendon supporter was probably anticipating. We've played well. We've got an identity now. We run and carry. We're playing strong defensively. We zone back well. It's what we need as a team. It's something we probably haven't had for a good 10 years. So moving forward, I don't think finals is out of the question. History shows that if you're in the 8 come round 6, and there's a very good chance that you'll be playing at the pointy end of the year. But for Essendon supporters, don't expect too much yet. We're still, I think, we're the 3rd youngest list in the AFL. We're still learning a game plan. There will be ups and downs, so just be patient. But I really like what we're doing. And for the first time in a long time, I've got optimism. I think that there is an end goal in sight with what Mr. Scott's got planned for us. And hopefully that leads to premierships down the track.
Yeah, and I reckon Geelong, don't rest on them. They're bouncing back. They'll come right. No difference what you've talked about with Tom Hawkins. He had no preseason, was running on one leg. Those two are up and about, Cameron and Hawkins. I think they'll start to work it out. I think they'll be there or thereabouts. I don't think they're the premiership side this year, though. I think they're showing that there's something missing. They're a slight yard short, or is it a slight year older? But Geelong, it's interesting to see where they're at. The one I'm probably the most shocked about with their start is the Dockers. The Dockers should have been somewhere around 4-1, nearly even 5-0 when you looked at the start of their season. They're completely the other way around at the moment and look a little bit lost, especially when it comes to going forward. So to me, they're the biggest shock in a negative way. But I wouldn't worry about Geelong. I think they'll bounce back okay.
Yeah.
What I love to see. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by the Western Bulldogs start and how hot and cold they've been. You know, for a team that was touted as a potential top 4 team this year, they've done nothing. You know, they've won, what are they, 1-4 at the moment? And a real danger. They've got some danger games coming up. So, yeah, especially this week at Fremantle, like in Perth against, they're not a bad side, Freo. If they lose that, they're 1-5 and really staring down the barrel or down the barrel, sorry. And does Luke Beveridge start feeling the heat then?
I think Luke Beveridge is definitely feeling the heat. I think that list is way too good to be performing the way that they are. Mark my words, I think if Richmond, and it comes down to a few factors here though, but I think if Richmond get their players back, if they get Tarrant fit and Curvis back and Lynch back, I reckon they still make finals. I think that list is still a good list. I think they've got the right players when everyone is playing, and I think they make finals. So I'd be intrigued to see what they're paying to make finals. I reckon they might sneak into that 8th spot. They've definitely got to be able to turn it around, and they've got to get their players back out on the field, which leads into an interesting question here from Elfie. Will Dusty Martin retire soon? Mate, I wouldn't be shocked if he does. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, there's players who have left the game early. There's players who have just made calls on certain things. What else does he have left to achieve? He is a little bit of a to himself kind of guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he retired at some point. Absolutely. Soon.
Best friend, brother Alfie. How are you, mates? Hey,
is this the Alfie from NBA?
Yeah, Alfie's a big NBA man. Yep.
Yeah.
And starting to get into the AFL a little bit. Really good lad, Alfie is. I'll tell you what, I think with the way Richmond's going, if they peter out and don't fire a shot this year, it could be. Because with the way Dusty is, he's got such a big following outside of football that he could make a career out of being in commentary, even though he doesn't talk too much, out of just being a figure, an AFL figure. So when you're looking at it from that point of view, if Richmond are rebuilding, does he, one, go to Sydney, but there's no real push to go to Sydney anymore? Does he go somewhere quieter like to Brisbane, or does he go over to Perth to finish his year or to finish his career, or does he just finish off? So, yeah, watch this space with the Richmond Tigers.
I reckon it'll be interesting to see. Like, I think this has got to be Cochin's last year because he's struggling to get in that best 22 to begin with. And it's very clear that Cochin and Martin have a very good relationship with one another. I think, Cochin's been that real backbone for Martin by the looks of things of someone watching from the outside in. So with Cochin maybe being his last year, who knows? It gives, like you said, Martin a bit of a decision to go. Does he go somewhere else, or does he call it a day or does he try and stay? He definitely loves the quieter life. So it'll be interesting to see. But what an absolute legend. I think he'll go down as one of the greatest finals players of all time, is where I'll put him in the categories. I think as a finals and obviously grand finals with that many Norm Smiths, in my mind, he goes down as one of the greatest finals players in my era for sure. Definitely.
I've got another question from someone that's listening in the car. Tom Mitchell, break even, 130. Would you trade him?
So do you want me to go or do you want to go? You go. You go first.
Yeah.
I've got a rule right now, and it depends on your team, but I've got a rule, and I think a couple of blokes wrote this on Twitter as well, and I couldn't agree more. I'm not doing any primo sideways moves right now until I get my house in order. So my house in order needs to be, I've got to make sure I've got cash generators, and I'm downgrading some of the rookies to some new cash generators, and then I'm upgrading to primos and keepers. Once I feel in a comfortable space with that, unless someone's fully not performing, which he's performing okay, unless someone's fully not performing, there's no primo sideways until I get my house in order with my upgrades and my continued cash generators. So I would say no.
Yeah, on the same. He's got potential to be in the top 12 mids towards the pointy end of the year. So why would you trade him out, or why would you trade out someone that's ultra consistent for someone that may fluctuate in price and you may not end up with the scores that he's giving you? So here's a keep for me.
Last question in here, and then we might talk about some BEs, and then we will call it a night until others come in if there's a few more questions. There's a lot of NBA chat going on, which I really like. It's good. We dropped the NBA. We know people love their NBA. Make sure be listening into Matty Garrett and Matty O'Brien, the two Matts getting on board with the NBA chat, which will be coming to you soon, especially heated right in the playoffs right now. My Lakers going down today, but we'll bounce back. Don't you worry about that. Last question before I go back to work. Good man. Miami Heat is my team. However, as a Heat fan, if they don't get eliminated in the first round against the Bucks, do they need to, if they do get eliminated in the first round against the Bucks, do they need to rebuild, or Pat Riley needs to go? Well, mate, here's a chance to show your NBA knowledge in our AFL pod. Let's go from there.
Well, Pat Riley is almost, 77, 78 years old. He's been around a long, long time, but he seems to be a bit of a whisperer when it comes to getting good free agents to sign at Miami. I don't think pushing him out the door would be right for that franchise, given that Jimmy Butler's aging at the moment. You want to try and keep Bam around. Spoelstra is still a very good coach. If Pat Riley retires, does Spoelstra then move into the front office and then they get a new coach? I don't know. If Pat Riley goes, there'll be massive changes there at Miami. For me, they're one of my least liked sides, so hopefully everyone leaves and they've got no one. But, as a Golden State man, I hope we come back and beat the Kings. We're struggling a bit at the moment. Light the beam, Justin.
Light the beam. All right, mate, let's finish up tonight's live. I'm going to go through the BEs with you. I want you to tell me who are still the most appealing out of these players, because people are starting to look to do a few downgrades. And these are the guys that you probably want to look at if you're downgrading to get some cash. Charlie Constable still sits at 1. Dylan Williams, Chase Jones, Ned Moyle, Asava Radaglia. That wraps out the top 5. The next 5 are Luke Edwards, Matt Roberts, Bodie Orland, Seamus Mitchell, and Tyler Young. And Tyler Young being number 10 is -16. So they're all quite strong negative numbers. Who stands out to you, and is there anyone that you leave alone in that space?
Matt Roberts is probably the big one for me. Asava Radaglia, you'll make money, but I think the ship sailed with him. Everyone else, Charlie Constable, Hewland, you've got to see that they're going to play first. And you'd probably want to see that, I'll rephrase that. You'd want them to have already been in your side, or you've held them for this reason. So don't waste a trade getting these ones in, because they might only play one game and then leave again.
Beautiful. Yeah, I agree. People are giving us a lot of feedback to stop agreeing. So I think Chase Jones to me is still an interesting one. And I know we talked about it. If people want to kind of have a little bit of a crack and do something different, I know it goes against my rules, so I'm not bringing him in, but I think he looks pretty good. And with a -31, you could do a lot worse out of the slightly higher priced ones. For me, though, I wonder if Witts is back. If he's back, then you stay well clear of Moyle and don't go anywhere near it if you really need to do a quick cash grab. But he might only get one more game, and that could be it for the rest of the year. Luke Edwards, I think, has got a little bit too high, but has good job security now with all the injuries. Seamus Mitchell is just let him play one more. We've talked about that enough. Dylan Williams, I'm not sold on just yet. I think Port Adelaide still have a few things to play out with their team. I just pray to the footy gods that Charlie Constable gets picked soon and rewards us for those who have held on to him, which is a few of us. He's still owned by quite a few teams. So, look, I just think we hopefully get him in and get some cash and even possibly somebody that can go on the field. And that sort of leads into this question here. You know, who are some of the rookies on the bubble worth bringing in? So I'm thinking Roberts and Williams definitely been the hot topic. However, Williams ain't getting love at the moment. Look, Big Horse is giving him some love. Me, I haven't quite given him enough love just yet. I think I'm just a little bit concerned with where he slots in. But that's because I'm not in a trade burn situation right now. If you got the trades, I'd be doing the double downgrade, and my two people would be Roberts and Williams. But I'm waiting to see maybe a bit of Seamus Mitchell next week and then do an upgrade as well. If not, possibly move on someone like a Setterfield next week and do 2 primo upgrades with a downgrade.
Yeah. I think he's not getting a lot of love because he's in a footballing state that doesn't really get a lot of love. I was watching last week and they put Darcy Byrne-Jones forward as a forward tagger, which allowed Williams to run around in the back line. If that's going to continue, I can see a role for Williams. And if he gets picked, you could do worse because you're still going to make money. If the DBJ experiment continues and he plays forward a lot, I think you'll find that Williams will be very similar to your McKenna's and your Wilmots. You know, sometimes will score in the 70s, but more often than not will score around your 50s, 60s. So there's a little bit of love there for me, but he's not Sheasel.
He's not Sheasel. That's a really good point. He's good. Where does one last one I'll bring up before we close at the show? Where does Matty Johnson sit for you? From Fremantle.
Yeah. Sub twice or 3 times, was it? Twice. Yeah, scored okay last week in a close game. I'm not going to touch him. One of our more better followers, or not better followers, but one of our more avid followers, Ryan Hammond, he's bringing in Chase Jones this week. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just said it before. Like, I'm unsure. Like, I think you could do a lot worse. I think it comes down to what you're trying to do with your teams. You know, I've got Will Day still sitting there on the bench for one more week with the injury, so with the suspension. So I held him. It breaks my rule. To bring in someone over 300K right now breaks my rule. I don't think he's a keeper. I don't think he stays as a top 6, top 12 defender. So it breaks my rule. But look, I could see why people are looking at it. A minus 31 is always very handy, and scoring a 116 with an average of 81, you could do a lot worse. And I will say this, he looked good. I watched him live. He looked very good. And Adelaide looked to be a bit balanced. Surely they're not making too many changes after the performance they put out last week. And he was getting a lot of footy, and they were getting it to him, but they were flogging that side. So I'd be intrigued. And I think this is your point of how do they go against the team when they're not the front running side.
Can I ask you this, more importantly for our viewers at home? McDonald, is it McDonald who's the tagger for Hawthorn?
Finn McGuinness,
sorry. Does he go to Dawson this week?
Well, Finn McGuinness got dropped, so I'm intrigued to see if he does get brought back in, because when there's a role to play, and this might be that opportunity to see that. And this is why I get a little bit concerned with Sam Mitchell throwing the magnets around based on who they're playing, giving different players opportunities, giving different players rests, and what that looks like. There's every opportunity they might bring him in to play a tag role. And I think they've realised that that's the only job he can do at the moment, because they have tried to take him off that role and he just looks a little bit lost. So let's look to see what the team announcements are. Surely if he's coming in, he's going to one of them. That would be my announcement, is surely if he comes in, he's playing on Laird or he's playing on Dawson to try and shut one of them down. That's the only thing you can assume. And he's a big enough body to do it as well. I tell you what, though, I'm very impressed by those two and how much footy they're getting. Absolutely.
Ridiculous at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, mate, I think we've got to our points there. Thank you to all our questions. We can give a little bit of a tease. Me and the Big Horse are back in the studio tonight recording our next podcast. We have, can we announce it?
We can.
We have the number 8 currently overall in Supercoach coming on our show tonight, which will drop tomorrow. And we're going to talk all things about his team. I had a look at it today, mate. Obviously I like it because he's got himself to number 8, but some interesting pieces to how he got to number 8. I'm really intrigued to ask him about what his moves are going to be this week, and to talk to him about his up and downs.
So, Stewie Team McSween, number 8 overall at the moment. I'm not sure how confident he is in his side and whether he's going to make some moves, but to be number 8 overall, for me, the hard work's done. You've got to get out ahead. People have now got to catch him. You know, he's only, 120 points behind number 1 at the moment. So it only takes a couple of things to go his way, and he might be right at the top. So I'm interested to see what he's doing with his team. Maybe I'll take some pointers off him, and then we can pass it on to our viewers.
Mate, if I was sitting number 8, I would just not be sleeping. And because you're right, I kind of disagree with you. You're not wrong, but I feel like my thoughts would be the other way around, which is like you'd be overthinking every decision. How do I stay up there? How do I move up? Ask Trent. Trent had that panic state in that sort of number 1, and we liked the moves that he was looking at doing. And then Lachie Neale just went spastic and just has scored so many points. And Brennan Cox didn't do what he wanted him to do. It would be a tough place to be up there. But look, all credit to anyone who gets up there, and it's a really fun spot to be. So I'm so intrigued because there are a couple of players in his team that are a little bit roller coastery. So I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do with those players and what his moves are going to look like. So yeah, look forward to that. That will drop tomorrow. Make sure you jump on. If you haven't subscribed, please do. The only way you get your prizes from our beautiful sponsors is to subscribe on all our platforms. Guys, we can't thank you enough for the questions. Hopefully we've delivered the answers. We look to get more questions in and answers as we go into the next round. Cheers for your time, Big Horse. I'll see you later tonight. And
for those listening at home too, we are going to do another live tomorrow, and we have a special guest.
Who's doing it?
Yes, a special, very good gadget type operator in Ryan Hammond is joining us.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing I'm not going to be on the live tomorrow if Hammond's going to be on it. So,
we're getting the big fella on the show who is currently the favourite to win the MVP of the Australia-New Zealand 2K League. And again, as we promoted in previous episodes, if they end up winning that, that's $6,500 in their pockets. So I'll be asking him some questions about how he goes about it, what he does in and out of footy, because he is an avid Adelaide Crows supporter. He's not quite right sometimes, but we'll give him that. But for me, I'm excited to hear his insight as well. He's quite switched on when it comes to footy as well.
No, he really is. I think that's a nice little fill-in. He will hopefully definitely bring some different insights to myself. And to all our listeners out there, me and the Big Horse have definitely made an agreement that we want to never stop bringing you content, no matter what steps into our lives. So I'll be out tomorrow, and Mr. Hammond will be sitting in this seat tomorrow. And no doubt you guys will have a fantastic chat and bring everybody the answers they need to their questions as we get excited for the next round. So this has been the Molten Fantasy Sport Podcast. We'll catch you next time. Peace out.
See ya.